You're watching Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Rana Gaeva. Today, we are going to talk about Azerbaijani Mugham, which has been included to the UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage. As we know, Mugham attracts not only locals, but also foreigners. So, today, our guest is Jeffrey Werbock, chairman of the Mugham Society of America and popularizer of the Azerbaijani music overseas. Hello, Mr. Werbock. Thank you for accepting the offer and coming to our program.
You're most welcome.
Let's get straight to the questions. So, the first question is, how did you discover Mugham?
Well, I was a young man living in the United States, where I was born, and I traveled to California because I wanted to be a composer. And California, especially Los Angeles, had and still has a reputation for being a magnet for musicians and composers. And by luck or by fate, I discovered an old musician by the name of Zavulon Avshalamov, who was originally from Derbent, Dagestan, and he played Mugham on Kamancha. And by luck or fate, we met in Los Angeles, and instead of wanting to pursue my interests as a composer, instead I decided I wanted to learn how to play Mugham.
Okay, what do you know about the roots of Mugham?
Well, this is a topic of discussion for musicologists and ethnomusicologists, and it's quite a lively topic. I'm always surprised by the degree of interest in the academic community in the questions of Mugham and where it originates from. The roots of the genre that Mugham is derived from, which is basically Middle Eastern, Central Asian music, there have been identified three potential sources. One is ancient Egypt, where the concept of modular scales, modal scales, was first conceived, according to the archaeological record. And then Central Asia, which of course it's clear the connection with Central Asia and Azerbaijan, which is in the Caucasus. And thousands of years ago, the dominant philosophy or religion, if you wish, was called animism, where people believe that there's a universal force, the life force, that flows through all objects, animate and inanimate. So not only do people have life and spirit, animals have life and spirit, the rivers have a life and spirit, the mountains, the clouds, the lakes, everything is infused with the sacred energy. And in Central Asia, this animism took on a great significance for the vocalizations of all natural phenomena, not just animals, but also, all aspects of nature. And they began to incorporate this in their musical artistic expressions. And there are many people who believe that these are the basic roots. And then there's a third potential source, which is the practice of fire worship was another dominant religious or philosophical concept. And because of your phenomenon in Azerbaijan and the Caucasus, you have this Yanardagh and Atashgah, the burning mountain, where the gas comes up from the deep inside the ground through the porous rock, and somehow it ignited, and it's been burning for thousands of years. And this was considered a miraculous phenomenon that would attract pilgrims from all over the Eastern world. And apparently those from Hindustan, I think they believe they call them the Parsis, and they traveled all the way to Kafkaz, to Azerbaijan, to see this great phenomenon and to worship there. Undoubtedly, they brought their music with them. So we have three potential sources, Egypt, Central Asia, and Hindustan, that converged in the Caucasus to create the foundation of a great musical genre which has evolved into what we now in modern contemporary Azerbaijan call Mugham.
So it means that many nations, let's say a few nations, have Mugham. But what is the difference between Azerbaijani Mugham and any other form of music?
Any other form of related music?
Yeah.
You mean, Well, it's an interesting question. It's really not possible to articulate in words these differences. I mean, we can try, but before we try to delineate the nuances of the differences, it's important to establish the continuity. For example, all the way from Morocco, which is the western part of North Africa, from Morocco to Egypt, throughout the Middle East, the Caucasus, Central Asia, India, South Asia, all the way to Indonesia, the ethnomusicologists are beginning to accept a concept delineated by the word Makamistan, meaning it's an entire geographical region which, given the vast diversity of the musical styles within that region, they all seem to have certain features that are common to all these diverse expressions, which is the music is monophonic. It means it doesn't use chords. The melodies are developed as individual sequences of notes that relate to a root tone, not to any chordal structures. Second is modal, which means, of course, they spend entire semesters discussing what is the meaning of modal music. We certainly don't have time to go into that in depth. But it has to do with being selective, the number of notes that are chosen from within the interval of the octave, which is the basic interval for all music, old, new, east, west. The octave is the ruling fundamental principle for all music of all time, and how many notes you can choose to create the scales, which are the basis for the modes. In addition to that, you have in Eastern music, mugam and its related, the musical cousins of mugam, you have microtonality, which means that on the standard Western piano, for example, an octave will be filled with 12 keys, black and white keys between the octave interval. But in microtonality, you can have up to 84. That means that we're able to distinguish between these very fine differences in the frequency of the pitch of the notes. Also, mugam is meter free. What that means is it's not based on a regularly repeating rhythm. It's without a time signature, you see. So it's more free floating, and it's the expressiveness of the phrasing of mugam is actually more like language, where you can speed up and slow down at will. You're not tied to a specific beat. And mugam is also very densely ornamented, very richly ornamented. It means not only do we have the sequence of notes to create the melodies, it gets decorated, richly decorated with high density of what we call grace notes, slides, glissando in the Italian lexicon.
So we know that you're engaged in mugam professionally, and you're the chairman of the Mugam Society of America. So my question is, how do you realize the promotion of mugam in the US, overseas in general? How do you promote mugam?
Well, first let me amend what you just put forth here. I would never classify myself as a professional in music. Now, regarding the second part of your question, how I promote mugam in the United States, in the early days, it was interesting and exciting to make an ensemble and put on the costume. In Azerbaijan, we call that cherkes or khalat, depending on which kind. And we would do a presentation on stage in a context of a concert-like auditorium with, people would come and listen and clap their hands and then go home. Since then, I'm doing solo work, and I find it much more interesting and much better results as far as impressing Western audiences with the idea of mugam by doing solo work in the classrooms in universities and schools, where perhaps they're studying, for example, courses in world music, and the professors and the teachers in the schools would call me and say, "Mr. Werbock, please, will you come to our classroom and take a class, explain mugam, play some examples of mugam on your instruments, and take the questions from the students so that they not only have an hour of entertainment, which is not so much the point, but to educate them." So my task is to find the most effective, most efficient, best way to quickly prepare Western audiences, most of which are consisting of people who never heard Mugam, and to quickly bring them to the point so that they're ready to listen to the Mugam and savor it and understand and appreciate it, not just they hear it and they forget it the next day. I want them to have a lasting impression, and that's only possible in the classroom.
Okay, it's clear. Would you make your audience happy by performing a piece of Mugam that you love the most?
You mean today, now?
Yeah.
Of course, my pleasure.
It was wonderful. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
For giving us such pleasure. Okay, I think we can move on now. And we know that the presentation of your film, Young Voices, Ancient Song, has been held in Baku. And please tell us about this and what is the message of that film?
It's got multiple messages. The first and outermost story is the children, Azerbaijani children, who are living in refugee camps because they are refugees from the Karabakh War. And in spite of the fact that they're living in such difficult conditions, they have a strong interest in continuing the great tradition of learning to sing and play Azerbaijani mugham. And this is an extraordinary phenomenon. Not just the fact that they're living in the harsh conditions of refugee camps, but even the idea of children capable of singing this most sophisticated music, which from my point of view is on par with and every bit equal to European opera as far as nuance, sophistication, and exactitude of execution. One of the messages of this film is to call attention to Azerbaijan and its rich cultural heritage and this a unique phenomenon.
So, in your previous interviews, you have said that your dream is to open a Mugam school in Shusha. We Azerbaijanis know why this city. Could you please explain to our viewers why you have chosen Shusha?
Well, let's put it in the context in which this desire of mine was expressed, because without the context, it's just kind of unattached idea. The year was 1997, and it was my third visit to Azerbaijan, and I was brought here by the oil consortium, who had just finished renovating the opera house. You know, the interiors of the opera was brand new, finished, and it was they did a beautiful job, and they were discussing what's going to be our first program with this new renovated opera house. And someone suggested, why don't we have a Mugam evening? Even though it's opera house, you know, they didn't have the Mugam center yet, right? So they thought, oh, it's perfect. Let's have an Azerbaijani Mugam. We call it Mugam Gecesi, the evening of Mugam. And then once that was agreed, they said, okay, who's going to be in the program? And one of the musicians suggested, why don't we bring Mr. Werbock from America? You know, he's an interesting fellow. He basically almost taught himself our Mugam tradition. And let's invite him to participate in this historical event. So I came to Azerbaijan, and I don't know how, but somehow your great leader, President Heydar Aliyev, he heard about my being in Azerbaijan for this purpose, and he expressed an interest to meet with me. So they brought me to his office, and we sat together for 30, 40 minutes and had a long discussion about the importance of high art culture in the invigorating and strengthening the sense of national identity. And Mr. Aliyev was explaining how national identity is crucial to the future of any country. If you don't have a strong sense of national identity, you are vulnerable to the impositions from other countries that might have some, you know, imperialistic thoughts about your territory. So he wanted Azerbaijan to be strong, and he felt that there was a role to be played by the arts in the culture to help to bring Azerbaijan together to create what is called milli kimlik, which is a sense of national identity. And of course, Mugam is a central feature. So he was interested to discuss this with me, and also he wanted to let me know that he thought that my work in America was also quite interesting, that I'm willing to go out of my way and promote Azerbaijan in my country. So he wanted to thank me for that. And it was from that discussion when he said to me, is there anything I could do for you? You know, it's a normal, natural way people end a conversation in Azerbaijan. They say, what can I do for you? Anything I can do for you? And I said, you know, I'm actually quite capable. My hands, you know, I'm physically quite good at laying foundations and bricks and plumbing and electrical work. I can build with my own hands a little building. How about if you invite me back and we'll build a Mugam school in Shusha? Because Shusha is the cultural and spiritual capital of Qarabakh. And I know that Qarabakh is occupied, but at the time our hope was it will soon be returned. Of course, history did not agree with my assumptions. So it was just something that I wanted to say to return the good feelings that he gave me. I wanted him to feel something positive like that. And so I made this suggestion. And of course, I'm waiting for the day when they will invite me to go to Shusha and lay the first brick of the Mugam school in Shusha.
Yeah. And we hope that very soon your dream will come true. So
I hope so too.
I would like to finish the program with the last question, which is, we know that, I mean, it's common knowledge that Mugam is related to the Eastern culture, right? And many nations perform Mugam, and many of them perform Mugam at such a high level. But why do the Armenians claim that it belongs to them? Mugam belongs to them.
The word Mugam refers to a specific genre of music which is Azerbaijani, and mainly only Azerbaijanis play Mugam. What other nations play, for example, Uzbeki people, they play Shashmakam. It is not Mugam. Of course it's related, but it's quite different. In Iran, they pronounce it Magam, and it's very, very different. It's related, it's a close cousin, but it is not Azerbaijani Mugam. Iraq has Makam, Turkey has Makam, or sometimes they refer to their music as Taksim. There are versions of this kind of music throughout the Eastern world, but I would never classify it as Mugam, because that word is what Azerbaijanis do.
Thank you very much for coming to our program. You have watched Frankly Speaking. Today, we have talked about Azerbaijani Mugam with Jeffrey Werbock, Chairman of the Mugam Society of America. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.